Racism can include many things, including racial prejudice, negative attitudes or assumptions towards a racial group. It can include racial stereotyping, treating millions of different individuals as though they all think, behave, and live the same way. Racial discrimination, treating someone unfairly because of their race or ethnicity. And then, of course, there's institutional discrimination, rules, practices, traditions, decision-making patterns that unfairly disadvantage people based on race, whether the unfairness is intentional or has been allowed to continue without correction. So definitions, they do sometimes differ. People will use the term racist or racism to describe any race-based prejudice or discrimination. Others define racism more narrowly as racial prejudice reinforced by institutional or social power. But we're not going to get bogged down in a vocabulary fight. We're going to ask practical questions. So if something happens and racism is involved, or the accusation of racism, we have to ask ourselves, what happened? Who here was treated differently? Was race indeed a factor? What evidence supports that conclusion? Was this an isolated misunderstanding or was it part of a pattern? What harm occurred? And what would a fair response look like? Because you see, race is not a biological ranking system. One of the most compelling scientific facts about race is that it is primarily a social and political classification, not a biological hierarchy separating humanity into superior and inferior groups. The National Human Genome Research Institute, I know something that we're all extremely familiar with, right? Well, they describe race as a social construct that has historically been used to classify and marginalize groups. It also notes that there is more genetic variation within self-identified racial groups than there is between them. So, for example, skin color, hair texture, facial features, ancestry, cultural heritage are real characteristics, but they do not establish a person's intelligence, their honesty, their morality, work ethic, compassion, criminality, or their value. A person's appearance tells you almost nothing about that person's character. You can't look at somebody and judge them based on how they look.